Hey everybody, it's Scully. So, I had mentioned in a previous video some things about anger and kind of how to deal with that, and I actually wanted to kind of bring that topic up again for this video for kind of a few reasons. So, as I've mentioned before, I have bipolar disorder, mood swings, mania, depression. I should warn you, I'm feeling pretty revved up right about now, so if my speech gets really fast, again, I apologize if it's a little hard to keep up with. But anger is a pretty big component of bipolar disorder, which is why I wanted to bring it up in this video again, because it is something that can be very hard to manage for a lot of people. So I guess I kind of not only just wanted to touch base on it again in this video, but also talk about my own personal experience with it. Now, some people have trouble controlling anger, some do not. Sometimes anger can be triggered by certain things going on in day-to-day life. Sometimes people can feel angry when they think of past events that have happened, or sometimes people can have a general sense of irritability that doesn't appear to have a known cause and they don't always know why. And this can exist in many different forms of mental illness. It can be with ASD, it can be with bipolar disorder. Borderline personality disorder tends to have a lot of anger. A lot of that, from what I understand, is kind of more environmental than just random. Even if it's something that maybe doesn't seem clear to one person, I mean, it can still be from something. Like, even if it's a situation that may not, for example, irritate another person, it may be irritating to that person. There's also like intermittent explosive disorder, which that one is heavily kind of circled around anger as well. And then post traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, also has a lot of anger as a component of as well. So anger does actually exist in quite a few different areas of mental illness. So this one kind of, like I said, focusing more on bipolar disorder, bipolar rage. You tend to see this more in manic states more than depressive states, because with depression you kind of see more of the lack of interest, not a lot of energy. Um, it's very hard to be productive during depression because you don't have a lot of energy, you don't have as high of a drive to be productive because you don't have as much energy, and you have a general sense of kind of hopelessness that comes with being depressed. And if you've ever experienced depression or any kind of sadness at some point in your life, you can see how that would really start to affect somebody pretty quickly if it's severe enough, or just really in general. I mean, sadness is sadness. Nobody wants to deal with that. I mean, let's be realistic. So, yeah, with mania, there's different types of it. I do believe I mentioned before there's euphoric and dysphoric mania in bipolar disorder. Dysphoric mania you tend to kind of see with more with mixed states, or just, I mean, again, everybody's mania is different with bipolar disorder. I feel like in my case, mine happens to be more euphoric. So normally, if I'm getting just pure mania by itself, I tend to feel more elated. I tend to feel more up. Suddenly, things that bother me don't seem to bother me so much anymore, which feels amazing at first. Because suddenly, I get a lot of anxiety on a regular basis, as I'm sure a lot of people do. I always feel like if it's not one thing, it's something else. Just like a revolving door, it just doesn't stop. And suddenly, mania hits, and I just have this sudden feeling of just, screw it, I don't care anymore. I don't care. And it's not that I don't care at all. It just, I feel like I don't care. I don't often personally feel like I'm very quick to anger when I experience mania. However, I've kind of learned over the years that's not always the case. There can be some things that throw me off. Just like with anybody. I mean, sometimes you can be having a good day, and one sideways comment can just make you want to whip your head around and be like, "Let me tell you something, Francine," because maybe you're just not in the mood to hear it. Sometimes people with bipolar disorder can be quick to anger because if they're manic, if they are in a generally good mood, they can be feeling not only just a general sense of irritability from the mania itself, but if they're in a good mood. I mean, let's face it, if you're in a good mood and you feel like somebody's bringing you down, that might make you more irritable, less tolerant of whatever behavior that is or sideways comment. So there's the possibility that you can be quick to anger because you feel like the other people aren't in a good mood like you are, and there might be that question of, why am I in a good mood and nobody else is? But just, I mean, some people can just have a shorter temper when they're manic as well, because some people, even though, like I said, I tend to feel euphoria with mine, some people feel dysphoric, where they actually feel really bad. They have energy, perhaps, but if it's anything like the mixed states that I feel at times, those are always, honestly, in my opinion, at least in my personal experience, I think it feels worse than depression by itself, because, at least in my case, I already feel really bad, and then the energy from the mania mixes with it. So it's like taking a fire and pouring gasoline over it. It just makes it worse. So I might feel bad, but then my mind is racing out of control, like the revolving door effect I was just talking about. So instead of maybe worrying about one thing, like maybe when I'm just depressed, maybe it's one thing that's bringing me down. And that's more of a sinking, like I feel like I'm in quicksand, honestly, when I have depression. It's just a very sinking feeling. I feel like I can't get out of it no matter how hard I try to pull myself out of it, until it's like I feel like whatever force that is pulling me under suddenly lets go when the depression goes away, and I can climb out of it and I'm fine. But if I'm having a mixed state, or if I feel like I'm having like dysphoric mania in this case, because usually mixed states are dysphoric, they can be more mania heavy and not as much depressant, or it can be the other way around where it's more depressive heavy than mania, but the two are still happening simultaneously. It's just one is more apparent than the other, or is more dominant than the other in this case. But from my personal experience, I always just kind of felt like that, I'd have one thing bothering me, and maybe it wouldn't be bothering me so much after a while, and then there'd be another thing, and then that would just keep on happening, and it wouldn't stop, and sometimes maybe even the things I was worried about would just repeat. Like, I felt like I couldn't get a moment of peace from whatever it was that was bothering me, and it just kept going around and around like a carousel, and I kind of just get to this point of just, oh my god, make it stop, please, because it's like this door that just doesn't shut. There's just always somebody coming in and out, and then just when I think it's done, it's, oh, and another thing, oh, and another thing, and I just want peace from it. And as you can imagine, that could be a contributing factor why during mania, why it's so hard to sleep. Not only because your mind is racing so much and you have so much energy, but if it's like, again, the revolving door effect in my case, how are you supposed to get peace and quiet when something's constantly busting through that door saying, hey, by the way, I'm still here. You thought you could get rid of me. Nope, knock, knock, I'm still here. That's not a good feeling. Nobody wants to deal with that. It's just a hot mess. And again, this is my own personal experience. I'm sure it's different for everybody, but it's just very aggravating. And then just back to my point of just anger. I mean, if you have something like that building up, I personally can't stand getting angry. I've never liked getting angry. It makes me feel sick. I feel like my blood boils when I get angry, and it's like I can feel the heat of my blood boiling inside of me, and it feels like it's just hot. And every time, and then I feel like it spreads. Like, I can feel my hot blood spreading, and it feels like it burns as it spreads, and that intensity makes me feel so uncomfortable. It makes me feel sick to my stomach. And then it's like, once I realize I'm angry, then I get more angry, because I know in my mind I hate feeling angry. So then, if I'm already angry and maybe something, like let's say somebody makes me mad and I get angry, and then I realize I'm angry, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, this person made me mad, and I can't stand getting angry. So now that I'm not only angry at this person, but now I'm angry because I'm angry, and I hate being angry, and it's just like this hot mess. So as you can imagine, with something like bipolar anger, it's just, again, fire and gasoline. It's just not a good combination. There's a sense of lack of control, even as somebody who normally hates being angry, who can't stand that feeling. It is so hard to see yourself just feel that feeling. I mean, sometimes there are times in your life you have to stick up for yourself, like when people aren't very nice to you, which is already, for someone like me, very difficult to do. But then you have something like anger on top of it, and I feel like, especially in mania, when I already feel like I'm so impulsive, that I'm sitting there watching myself blow up at somebody and thinking to myself, here we go, I'm letting the anger win, I'm letting some part of me I don't like take over, doing all of this for me, and it's just such a helpless feeling, just watching yourself just lose control like that, with mania in general, but especially if there's something like anger involved. I tell people all the time, I don't like angry Skully. Sorry, my hand's shaking really bad. I'm trying to get it to stop. Been shaky ever since I've been feeling manic today. Plus, it's just a lot to talk about, I guess. Anyway, I tell people I don't like seeing angry Scully come out because I feel like she scares the ever living hell out of me. I don't like seeing myself angry. I don't like seeing myself get angry with people, even if they, in my mind, deserve it. I might, for a minute, think, okay, this person deserves it, but then afterward, I always feel guilty. I always have that self-loathing, like, oh my gosh, I should have handled that better. But then sometimes there's that part of me that's like, well, you should stick up for yourself more often because, you already gave that person the chance to change their behavior and they didn't listen to you. So, oh, they brought it on themselves. And it's just like that part of me that, I don't know, I just feel like I'm somebody else when I'm angry. And I've always felt that way my whole life. So a lot of times if I do feel angry, I'm very quick to take that emotion and try to turn it into something else just so I don't have to feel the anger, because that's how much I hate it. I'll turn it into fear, I'll turn it into sadness, something that in my mind I feel is more tolerable, as long as it means I'm not going to just, in my mind, feel like I'm going to lose control, because anger is one of the emotions that has always scared me the most. You just hear stories about somebody, in a rage, there was some, like, murder that happened, or there was some, like, really big domestic violence, or some really big just myth that happened between two people because somebody got angry and they just lost control. And I know that doesn't always happen, but those are always the stories I hear that I feel like scare me. And then when you feel how real anger is, how raw of a strong emotion it is, I don't know, I guess for somebody like me, I just don't like it. And that's just me personally. Everybody's different with that. Some people would rather feel angry than feel sad, because maybe when they're angry they still feel like they have some bit of control. Maybe they feel more hopeless when they're sad, so they would rather feel anger than feel that hopelessness. And really the key with any extreme emotion is really just to remind yourself you do still have control over it, even if it's not as much control as you would like to have. There are still ways that you can cope. And it's much easier said than done. I've grown to really love writing, and that's why I shared some of my writing in my one video, because it's been a wonderful outlet for me. Realizing I have such strong emotions and I can use it for something so powerful like that, even if it's my imagination, the fact I can use my imagination to take me somewhere that makes me feel better, that makes me feel safer, and it's something more productive than holding on to hurt feelings or letting feelings that I don't want to have take control of me, because I think everybody has feelings that they don't want to own, they don't want to acknowledge, because we're human and it's normal to be afraid of things like that. But as I've said before, I've let fear control me too much in my life, and now at the age of almost 31, I don't want it to keep controlling my life like that. I want to seize control over it, and I hope that this can be kind of eye-opening for other people that deal with this kind of stuff too, because I know it's more common than people think it is, and it's just part of being human. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just, nobody's perfect. We all have flaws we have to work on, and that's just part of life anyway. If we didn't have things to improve on, if we didn't have things to learn, then what would we be doing just floating around here, Also have fun in the process, because life is a very wonderful thing. It's a very beautiful thing that I try to appreciate pretty regularly, because there's some people that I used to know that aren't here anymore, and they want me to live life to its fullest, and I'm sure they would, love to be living it with me. So maybe the best thing I can do is have them live vicariously through me, and just do the things that, I would do with them if they were still here, or just do things in their honor. And even on its darkest days, that I know that life is still worth living, and it's still a beautiful thing. So I'm sorry if this video is a bit all over the place, and I just wanted to take a moment to share that with all of you. So if you made it till the end of this video, thank you for listening. So until next time, have a great day, guys.